The maid, breathless and anxious, rushed to the queen's quarters to deliver the horrifying news. Her hurried footsteps echoed through the palace corridors as she relayed the chief priest's decree, her voice trembling with urgency. The queen, upon hearing the news, was overwhelmed with rage and sorrow. She stormed into the hall, her voice rising in defiance as she pleaded with the chief priest, refusing to accept the fate of her child. Her cries of desperation echoed through the palace, demanding justice and mercy. Despite her pleas, the queen was ordered to return to her quarters and rest. The guards gently escorted her away, her cries of protest fading as she was led down the corridors. The weight of the impending tragedy hung heavy over the palace as the decision to cast out the prince was set into motion. Under the cover of night, the elders convened to deliberate over the chief priest's decree. Their debate was intense, with some elders arguing vehemently against casting the prince into the evil forest, while others insisted it was necessary to prevent calamity. The air was thick with tension as each elder voiced their opinion, their conflicting views highlighting the gravity of the situation. In the privacy of his chambers, King Igu Obinwan and Queen Lolo Nwonidim faced their sorrow together. "Do not let them take away my son," she pleaded. The queen's pleas were desperate, her cries echoing through the chamber as the king struggled to maintain his composure. His other wives watched in silent dismay as the king made the heart-wrenching decision that the prince must be cast out to the evil forest for the greater good. With a heavy heart, King Igu Obinwan made his final decree. Despite his personal anguish, he declared that the prince must be taken to the evil forest. The queen's cries filled the chamber as she clung to him, her distress evident. As the king exited the chamber, the elders stood solemnly, their expressions somber but resolute, ready to carry out the decree. Motsi Ekena continued to express his deep concerns, warning that the proposed ritual might not be enough to sway the gods. He argued that the gods' disapproval was a serious matter, and they might see any compromise as a mere token gesture. He cautioned that the village's entire future was at stake. Motsi Akachukwu reiterated his stance, emphasizing the urgency of the situation. He argued that immediate action was necessary to avoid potential disaster. His tone was forceful as he described the risks of delay, stressing that the village's safety could not be compromised. Motsi Onyonoch proposed a more cautious approach, suggesting a trial period where the prince would be placed under spiritual protection rather than being cast out immediately. He argued that this approach would allow the gods to reveal their will more clearly, without taking such a drastic step. After much debate, the elders reached a tense consensus. They agreed to conduct a ritual to appease the gods and see if a compromise could be found. The decision was a temporary reprieve from the chief priest's harsh decree, but the shadow of the prophecy still loomed large. With the elders' debate drawing to a close, King Igu Obinwan entered the chamber to announce his final decision. The atmosphere was tense as the king's presence commanded respect and silence. As he declared his decree, the elders bowed deeply, their voices united in a solemn chant of Igu in acknowledgement of the king's authority and final judgment. In the dim light of the chamber, Queen Lolo Nwonidim held her newborn son tightly, tears streaming down her face. As she sang a sorrowful Igbo lullaby, the weight of her impending loss was palpable. Her voice wavered with each note, conveying her deep anguish and the love she had for her child. With trembling hands, she removed her cherished necklace and draped it over the child and called him Obidike, a final gesture of maternal affection and hope.